Hello and welcome. This is Guy Glidden, and this is one of 3 videos to start the course, Contemporary Philosophic Views of Education. So this is one of 3 videos, and it doesn't matter what order you look at them. They're all brief, less than 10-15 minutes in length. And this one is all about providing an overview of the assignments for the fall 2012 class. Now the other 2, one is about Let's Get Started, which talks about course concepts. The other one is Read This Before Buying the Book. So they're all going to be available, and they'll be made available to you on attachments on an email message that's going to be sent on Monday the 22nd of October. They will also be available on the Moodle, which you can link on them there. So lots of access. Let's get moving here. Here in brief are the 6 assignments for this course, Contemporary Philosophic Views of Education. And I'm going to spend a few minutes on each. Now, do not worry. You will get lots more in terms of support and preparation for each of these assignments. But this will just give you an overview because I want everybody to know at the start of the class, what are we going to be responsible for before this thing is over. So that's really the purpose of this video. It'll give you a quick overview, and then we'll move on from there. Okay, and the Moodle website is going to be organized for sequence of assignments. In other words, there will be a section of Moodle for each week of the course, and underneath that week of the course, you're going to see subjected activities for completing the tasks and the assignments of the course. Also, the assignments are going to be divided into 2 groups here. The first group are what we call building block assignments, and I call them that because they're kind of what I would call single concept assignments. These include the development of a personal philosophy on your part, a completion of the Rossbarger inventory, and then we move into the completion of 3 reflective essays. Then as you're beginning to work on those, I will be providing lots of preparation for you for the 3 more complex assignments. And I say complex simply because there are 2 tasks involved in each of them. So for the philosophy behavior match, for example, you're going to be looking at talking with another person, getting a view of that person's philosophy, and then doing a match with behavior. And the worldview essay, the complexity is that I'm going to look for lots and lots and lots of sources of information and validation. And finally, the controversial issue presentation is one where you're going to be looking at something that's a controversial topic and also brings in some philosophical concepts. So a little bit of an overview from that point of view. Number 1 on the docket is that we need from each of you a personal philosophy essay. Now, you could do this in one of 2 ways. Some of you have already provided a file copy in your folder of an assignment which you were asked to, when you made application for graduate study, to provide us with a 300 to 500 word of essay on the topic of your philosophy of education. If you have that on file, you'd like me to use that, simply let me know. I will take it from there. If you don't have one on file, this is a great way to complete the assignment. So you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone by writing your personal philosophy of education. You do course assignment number 1 for this course. You also complete the filling out of your folder for the undergraduate study office. This is an interesting assignment, and that the main focus of this is to give you feedback so that I can give you ideas about future readings of the class, and also provide some clues to you that will allow you to compare this with writing expectations for the course. Now, you're going to get full credit for completing this assignment simply by turning in your work. So you've already turned in your assignment, you're already assured of full credit for this assignment. But the important thing is to place it on the feedback, and I want to encourage you to complete this just as quickly as you can. This week, you're going to be getting directions on completing a Rossbarger inventory, and I'm going to make this as easy as you can. You're going to get access to a Rossbarger inventory with directions that will be self-contained and completed. You're going to complete it, and you're going to send me back a copy, either by sending it to the Moodle stop or as an email attachment, and I will do the rest. But the whole purpose of the Rossbarger inventory is to give you food for thought about how your beliefs match up with some common ideas about philosophy. Completion of this ASAP is good because this will give you a lot of help as you're moving on to other assignments. So it's a simple thing to do, not much to it, but it's a good building block activity, which moves to the big building block activity, which is I'm going to ask you to write 3 what I term as reflective essays. Now, each of these essays is going to be a reflection on a different school of thought in philosophy. And as you complete this essay, I've provided the questions you need to answer. And the important thing is you're going to need at least a minimum of 2 references on this document, and at least 1, and preferably both, should be from an original source document. So here's how you approach this assignment. Look for a school of thought in philosophy. Number 2, and we'll talk about what those might be in just a minute here. Let me finish with the questions first. So when you identify a topic, in other words, a school of thought in philosophy, you're going to address these 4 questions completing the assignments. Number 1, you're going to give me a brief but accurate summary of that school of thought. What are the main ideas of it, and how would I recognize it? So that's task 1. Question 2 is, you're going to provide some illustrations or examples of this philosophy in action. So once you've given me your definition or the background information to answer question 1, you're going to look at your personal experience, or you're going to look at some things you read to give me some really good first-person accounts of illustrations and examples of this philosophy in action. 3, you're going to do a comparison and a contrast with an alternate philosophy. And you'll hear us a lot in the class. Every philosophy that you're going to look at has a comparison or a number of ideas which could be used as either comparisons or contrasting. For example, let's take the original 2 philosophies as we understand them. From the ancient Greeks, we picked up idealism and realism. Very simply, if you look at those ideas even briefly, you're going to see they don't agree with each other. They're a contrasting view. So that would be an example of what I'm looking for. And finally, as you're doing this, you're going to make a list of sources, because you're going to be doing some reading from source material, and I'm going to look for some examples of primary source materials. And we're going to talk about that also in a little bit here. Now, there will be a separate video to cover this process, but I have a neat 5-step process on the development and writing of a reflective essay. Look for this to be provided to you probably on Tuesday, the 22nd of October, if not sooner. So it'll be a brief idea, and it will be very helpful to you. Look for that as a process, but there is a very practical way to do this process here. So 4 questions right out of the rubric for completion of reflection essays. You're going to end up doing 3 of these reflective essays. Each is going to be on a different school of thought in philosophy. You're going to address these questions as you're doing them. And you will also see some help in Moodle, and also being sent to you about a process that you can use to do this without the use of a textbook. Now, a textbook would help too, but you can do it either way. This goes along with the other video I sent to you with regard to, do you need to buy the book or not? So look at them in context. Now, after you do these ideas, remember I said we've got 3 building block assignments. Now we're going to go on to the more complex ones. And one of these is a philosophy behavior match. It's complex in this way. First thing you're going to do is you're going to get somebody to work with you in doing this assignment. A friend, a colleague, a spouse, someone that you can work with, and you're going to address it in this way. First of all, you're going to interview this person, and you're going to get an idea of that person's philosophy, their beliefs. What do they think? How would they conduct to define themselves in terms of a philosophic school of thought? What are their beliefs? Once you have a view of their philosophy and beliefs, then you're going to collect information about some aspects of their teaching behavior or their work behavior. And I would suggest you do this with something that's kind of a challenging assignment, because this kind of gives an idea of how they approach life. Let me give you a view of this for you probably never even thought of before. In my spare time for years, I used to sing in amateur singing groups. And I was always interested when we were working on a new work for one of these singing groups. Sometimes we would have what I could call a train wreck. In other words, the thing kind of broke down and everybody kind of like got confused by the complexity of the music or something about it, the tonality, the timing, combination. And I was always intrigued as to how a good director would put us back together again. That's an example of the kind of task I would like you to compare in terms of a person's philosophy, and then a little bit about how they approach their work behavior, either as a teacher or a worker in some area. And then finally, you're going to write this up. Now, again, we'll talk a lot more about that, but that's an example of a more complex assignment. The Worldview essay is probably going to be the most complex writing assignment you're going to do in this class, because we're going to talk a lot about what your worldview or your overall philosophy of life is. And it probably, in terms of your ideas, could be very similar to your beginning essay on your philosophy or belief statement, that is assignment number 1, except look at point number 3. I want lots of validation and reference work. I'm going to ask you lots of questions. Where did you get that idea? What did you read to develop that idea? What books, what materials, what religious texts, what work texts prompted you to develop this philosophy? Lots of questions that you're going to answer with regard to this. Again, we'll spend a lot of time giving you background information about this. And this is something that you're going to want to think and reflect on a lot before you write it. And citations and sources are going to be very important. Finally, moving on quickly, because I don't want to take a lot of time in doing this, you're going to do a controversial issue project. Now, this is distinctive in several ways. Number 1, you're going to compare something that's controversial with a philosophical basis of it. And this is not so much a paper as it is a presentation. Now, there will be some writing work with it, but the main thing, I'm going to set it up at the end of the class. So you're going to do a presentation, probably a telephone presentation to me, to finish this particular project. Now, what might be an example? Will it give me one? How about the use of corporal punishment in schools? Paddling, spanking. Is that a good idea? Should we be doing that? Well, it's certainly controversial. Some people think we should not spare the rod because we'll spoil the child if we do. Others think that that has no place in modern society, and it probably could find some philosophical basis behind it. So lots of ideas on there. Again, we'll talk about all of these, because the whole point of this is to give you some background on the general idea of the assignments. Now, where to start? Look at the videos I'm providing, and then look for the materials you'll be getting this week to develop your work on your personal philosophy statement and your Rossbarger inventory. And this will get us moving, and we'll be talking a lot about the ways we're going to get there to get these things done. Talk to you a little more later. Bye-bye.